Hi there. In this video, we'll be covering how to turn an idea into a book. This topic, it really resonates with me, and I'm just really glad to be able to talk about it a little bit. It makes me think about a children's book that just really moved me. It's called What Do You Do with an Idea? It's so powerful to be able to take an idea and share it with the world and bring that message out to other people, to share with others. You probably have awesome ideas within yourself, and I want you to keep going with those ideas. I want you to believe in those ideas, that it's possible to share them, that it's possible to write them into a book, that it's possible to take your idea and transform somebody's life with it. By the end of this video, you will learn how to research and embrace your idea, how to do the hard work, how to trust the process, and what it means to share your idea with the world. And stay tuned until the end of the video for an opportunity I really think you're going to enjoy. Let's dive in. We have ideas all the time, these thoughts that come into our mind, that burrow deep within us, that make us think something. Oh, this would be a great book. This would be a great movie. This would be a great TV show. This would be a great anything. How often do we act on those things? How often do we actually follow through on them? It's so easy for us to come up with an idea, and yet we get so bogged down. We lose sight of it. We lose focus of it. We think about how hard it is. Maybe we do a little bit of research or digging and decide to walk away from it. And then we're filled with regret. Oh, wouldn't it have been great if? What if I had done this? What if I had done it differently? Our ideas matter. These ideas need to be out in the world. They're so powerful. They're so empowering, not just for you, but for other people. There's a reason that you're being drawn to this idea, and there's probably other people that have this idea too that want to understand the way that you see it, that really feel compelled and inspired by what this idea is all about. But you won't know that if you don't bring this forward, if you don't turn it into a book. Again, I don't want this to be a regret for you. I want this to be something that you do, that you accomplish, that you carry forward. It's possible. It takes time and effort, but it's possible. So it's not just about having the idea, it's about nourishing the idea. I have a little mini garden that I planted in my apartment, and I think about it that way. If you can start growing the plants, you can, plant the seeds, but if you don't water them, you don't give them light, if you don't nourish them in some way, they're not going to grow. And an idea is the same way. If you don't nourish this idea, if you don't give it sunlight and air and water, it's not going to sustain itself. We all have ideas all the time, but if you don't do anything about it, it's not going to happen. It's not going to change. You need to nourish your idea. And by nourish, I mean give it space. Start talking to people. Start finding out things. Find out what other people think about your idea. Get some little quick insights. Is this something that they see too? Is it something that somebody could benefit from? Ask around your friend group. Hey, what about this? What about this? What about that? It's scary to do that. It's scary to share your idea with somebody else because what if they say, oh, that's a horrible idea, So do some research, dig deep on it. Who would actually benefit from this? Who would actually be interested in this? Maybe it's not your group of people. Maybe it's somebody else outside. But ultimately, maybe they have ideas about it that can help you. Oh, so-and-so tried that already. Somebody else put a book out about this. It wasn't that good. Find out what exists in the marketplace that's similar but different from your book. You don't want to write the same book that somebody else has written. It doesn't do you any good to write the next How to Win Friends and Influence People if it's the exact same book, or Atomic Habits or anything. If it's a super successful book and somebody else has written it already and you don't have anything else to offer, don't write that book. It's not the right book for you. But maybe there's a great book out there within that idea element. Within this piece that you're trying to tell, maybe there's some other angle, there's some other way in. Another important element is figuring out what you need to accomplish your goal. What do you have to do in order to succeed? I think about that with the book I wrote about a baseball player named Ken Caminiti. He was the 1996 National League MVP. He was just a really interesting guy. Troubled life, but an interesting life. And in 2012, I decided I wanted to write a book about him. I was a journalist in New York City, and I had a lot of free time because I worked overnights, and I just started researching his life. And I spent the year researching his life and reading other baseball books. And a lot of them were pretty good and some of them were really bad. And I really thought about, what it would take. I would actually read these books and see how many people the author interviewed. And I said, okay, there's a demarcation line. When they interviewed 75 or 150 people, it was kind of thin. Depending on the era and depending on the topic and the research, and then it got better and better the more people that they talked to. So I had a goal for myself and I said, okay, I'm gonna have to interview at least 300 people, maybe more. I ended up interviewing 400 people. And I was really proud with the book, but I knew going in that this was gonna be a journey, and I knew going in that this was gonna take some time. But it was an idea I had. I didn't know this player. I wish I had connected with him at some point. He was an awesome dude. But at the same time, I knew going in, because I was an outsider in a sense, outside of being a baseball fan, I needed to do that much more digging to write a convincing book. So I had to keep talking to people again and again and again and again, reaching out to people, doing more research, digging deeper. I knew that that was the thing I needed to accomplish. But that was the idea I had, and I kept going with it. I wanted to keep putting it down. Life gets in the way. I just kept going with it. Again, it wasn't about showing off. It was about doing the work I needed to do in order to succeed in my goal of writing an awesome book about this guy. Again, it was a long process, and a process that involved a lot of false starts and stumbles and struggles and ups and downs. But I knew what kind of book I wanted to write and what kind of book I didn't want to write. And I needed to do a lot of digging in order to accomplish that goal. Maybe your book doesn't need that much, and I almost hope for you that it doesn't, because it's a long, grueling process. Maybe your book is based on your life experiences, based on your journey. I've worked on books like that as well, and it's so empowering and difficult and challenging and moving when somebody can dig deeper in their life and really understand how the pieces all fit together and how their story can resonate for other people. Again, it started with an idea. I think this is worthy of a book. Maybe someone told them that, or maybe they had this goal in mind. Either way, they took this thing and ran with it. They had this idea and did something about it. So you need to start thinking about what you can do to take those steps, what you would need to do to accomplish this goal. Because once you have that in mind, it's going to make it a little bit easier to turn this into a book. So you have your idea, you have your understanding of what it's going to take to accomplish it. You got to do the work. You got to write. You got to sit down and write the book, which is not always an easy process, but that's part of the goal. There's a reason why people work with experts in this space. When I work with somebody as this author guide, as this book writing guru of sorts, they're providing their story, I'm providing the storytelling expertise. And it's great to be able to meet them wherever they need to be met. A lot of times when you go into a bookstore and you see a book on the bookshelf, you're thinking, how did this person have the time to write this book? They probably didn't. They worked with somebody. They worked with an expert like me who was able to help them tell their best story possible. So if this process seems really difficult for you, there's a reason why it's challenging. There's a reason why few people do it so well. It's one thing to have the idea. How do you land that? How do you land the plane? How do you write the best book possible from that? A lot of times it involves working with experts. But if you don't work with experts, and I'm not suggesting that you have to, you really have to think about how you're going to get the work done. How do you do your best work? How do you do your best writing? Is it sitting down? Is it blocking out time? You could take a walk and do voice-to-text transcription and just talk through your story and use that as a baseline. As you think about turning this idea into a book, you've done the research, you understand what the scope is that it's going to take to accomplish this goal. Think about successful projects that you've worked on. What succeeded about them? What failed? What were your work habits? How do you keep going? How do you stay motivated? It's all of those things fit together. You have this idea that's fueling you, but at the same time, you need to understand how your work effort and how your steps and how your habits are going to help to add to that, and what habits you can bring to the table that are going to help you succeed. The next step is trusting the process. Trust the process. It's going to take longer than you anticipate. It's going to be more frustrating than you anticipate. There's going to be a journey involved. There's a reason why it takes so long. And I'm not saying time-wise just by itself. There's a reason why books are so difficult and why so few good books are out there. It's because people get impatient and they want to jump ahead, or they get worried about the cost overruns, and they jump ahead and speed through the process because they want to have a finished book. You don't want to have a finished book that doesn't feel finished to you. You don't want to have a finished book that feels imperfect or struggling or flawed. That's not to say that I want you to worry about perfection, because there's no perfect book. Every book has flaws, every book has issues. Every single book has something wrong with it. But at the same time, it's about diminishing as many flaws as possible and making this book as strong as you can, and feeling empowered through that process. You're going to feel more empowered through that process by working with professionals to help you edit the book, to help you lay out the book, to help you develop the cover. You know, all these little things. You can do so many things right, and there could be one little thing like your subtitle, or the text on the back of the book, or the cover, or the layout. All these little things can impact the book. You know, think about the editing process. A lot of times people get wary of editing. Oh, I don't need that editing. This is a really strong draft. And then they put out a book that's not quite finished, not quite ready, and then you can read the reviews online. Oh, this feels rushed. Oh, there's a lot of spelling errors. Oh, I didn't like this or that. All of these things can be worked through during the editing process, you know, and yet people jump ahead. You know, it's like having an awesome car with a bad engine, you know? You don't want that. You don't want the pretty facade. You want something that drives well, something that you feel so safe driving in, and it just feels like it's just flowing down the road. You don't want something that feels like, oh, I'm worried this is going to break down on the side of the road, because it's not that good, you know? You don't want to rush, because rushing it is going to have a negative impact possibly. People are going to say, oh, this feels rushed. I don't know if I want to work with this person. This feels rushed, you know? Take the time. This is about your idea, and this is about sharing the best version of your idea. You don't want to just rush ahead to say, oh, here's my idea, great. You don't want to rush ahead with this, because I know what that feels like. You know, we all have, in some ways, rushed something out before it was ready, and, you know, afterwards you feel this regret. What if I had done this differently? What if I had taken the time to get it right? I don't want that to happen to you. I don't want you to feel diminished with your idea because you didn't take the time to do it right. You got to take the time, you got to work on these steps, and you got to just trust the process. The awesome part of this process is when you get to share this book with the world, and you get to really bring it forward and, you know, connect with people and build relationships and, you know, reset the story. You know, here's my idea and I brought it forward. It's the best feeling in the world. It's so awesome when you can do that. It's such a special thing, and I want you to feel that way too. And if you're thinking about turning your idea into a book, I'd love to talk to you about it. I'd love to have a conversation. I'd love to discuss it further one-on-one. So if you're interested in doing that, just having a conversation, and you know, I can share some ideas and insights. I'd love to hear more about your plans. Just head to my website. It's goodbookhelp.com. You can click the link below. I'd love to hear about your idea, and I'd love to offer some insight on ways that you can bring that idea into the world and feel empowered, you know, to bring this message forward. Remember, a good book can change your life. I'm Dan Good. Thanks for watching.